Good evening, everyone, and welcome to the sixth edition of the Southcoast Job Central program right here on New Bedford Guide Live. I am your host, Ian Abreu. We had a few-week hiatus from the program due to the weather and some other technical issues, but we're glad to be back here in the studio live, glad to be back here on the program. For those of you who may be joining us for the first time, the purpose of the Southcoast Job Central show is to connect you, the resident of New Bedford, Greater New Bedford, and the South Coast region, to economic development professionals, workforce development professionals, and job creators in our region, and the real movers and shakers to help you get the career that you need and that you want, whether you're about to graduate from high school, whether you're about to graduate from college, whether you're unemployed or underemployed. So we want to connect you with some great resources at the city, state, and federal level to get you to where you want to be professionally. So today's guest, we have Dr. Jean Fox, the program manager of the Southcoast Rail project. But a little bit about Southcoast Rail. There is certainly a great deal of excitement in southeastern Massachusetts about resuming commuter rail service via the Southcoast Rail, and I'm very happy to talk about that. So, as some of you may or may not know, Mass DOT, the Mass Department of Transportation, has filed an updated environmental document for what we call Phase 1, and Dr. Fox will go over all of that. For Phase 1 service to begin late sometime in the year 2022 via the Middleborough route. And the reason for our excitement is clear, and I'll tell you a little bit why I'm excited, not only as a Chamber of Commerce professional, but as a city councilor and here in our city, but also just as a private citizen as well, like many of you. I'm excited because after years of promises, this goes back 30 years and years and years, and you all have experienced that pain with me and many others. The Commonwealth is on track to restore its rail to New Bedford, Fall River, and Taunton. So, those of you who may not be aware, the project will reconnect the South Coast region here of the state to Boston and the cities and towns along the way. It'll take vehicles off our crowded highways like 140, 24, 93. This is going to improve air quality. It's going to encourage tourism, not only us to Boston, but Boston down to New Bedford, into Fall River, into Taunton. It's going to provide jobs, and it's going to support smart growth here in our region. And I'm very excited about this project. I've been all in on this, as Dr. Fox knows, for my entire career as an economic development practitioner and as an elected official here in the region. And it's my pleasure now to welcome Jean Fox to the studio. Yep. Jean, how was my little intro? Was it to your liking?
Yeah, but just Jean Fox, please. Jean Fox, South Coast Rail Project Manager. I'm thrilled. I share your passion and excitement. We certainly are at a pivotal point in this.
Yeah, and it's a pleasure. And I know you're very busy working for Mass DOT. You're in Boston every day. You're in hearings. You're in meetings, working with the secretary, working with the governor's office. So I know we're going to get into, and by the way, folks, chime in with questions, comments throughout the show. And Jean, not Dr. Fox, Jean will be happy to take your questions, concerns, comments, and I will as well. And we'll just kind of banter about Southcoast Rail and where we are today and the projection in the future going forward. And I know for all the men and women who are watching and listening to our program today, you have prepared a wonderful presentation for them to view and to listen to. So without further ado, Jean, I know you've got a little presentation for us, and I'll let you take the reins.
Sure, and I just want to go through this quickly. I don't want to lose anyone, but I think it sets the stage for where we have been and where we are headed. So basically, I want to talk about what phasing means. First of all, let people understand what phasing means. I want to talk about the schedule and the trip times and how much we expect this thing to cost, what the next steps will be. I do want to also emphasize that there is a tremendous commitment on the part of MassDOT and the administration after many decades of promises and baby steps to advance.
It was Governor Weld who said you could sue me, right?
Sue me. He said sue me.
Was that 91?
That sounds about right. It was a long time ago, and if you talk to a lot of our long-term elected officials, they have more groundbreaking shovels than they ever wanted to own.
Just ask Mike Rodricks.
Ask him. He'll tell you.
Yeah, I think he still has it in his office.
Yeah, he does. He says he's going to keep it for the real groundbreaking.
Good.
So basically what we can, by phasing, and why are we phasing, we looked at what happened with the Green Line extension. And people in New Bedford may not be aware, but Green Line was mandated as part of the Big Dig project as an extension of the Green Line up north of Boston. it was because of a lawsuit that happened. Well, Green Line was getting ready to go, and we're in parallel at Southcoast Rail, kind of in the same place. Green Line does an independent cost estimate and finds out, whoops, it's going to cost a lot more and it's going to take a lot longer. That encouraged us to go back to the drawing board and revisit our numbers from when we first did our environmental review that issued in 2013.
Right.
Since that time, our timeline and our bottom line exploded. So what can we do? We can try to figure out a way to get some service at long last to Fall River, New Bedford, and Taunton. By phasing it, we are absolutely building a big part of what we'll need for the Stoughton preferred alternative. That still remains the preferred alternative, I might point out. 56% of the rail miles will be built. But we are also providing independent utility because we're helping the existing freight service. The tracks are in deplorable condition. This will really help upgrade things.
Right.
And we're building resiliency system-wide. So it has independent utility, which is why we can phase it. We have to continue plugging away on Stoughton. So by doing phasing, we can get rail to New Bedford by 2022, end of 2022. It gives you a one-seat ride. You don't switch trains. You're on one train from whatever station, Wales Tooth or Kings Highway, you get on in New Bedford, you go all the way up to South Station on one train. And the cost remains the same. We know it's $3.2 billion to build Stoughton, and when we phase it, it's $3.2 billion, because I can tell you the costs are a wash. Building so much in advance of Stoughton helps save us money in the long term.
And it's happening, folks. 2022. It is happening. It's going to be happening, folks.
And as you said, what are the benefits? The benefits are enormous. Once you make that rail link, you open up all the resources we have here to people who don't live here, and you open up all the opportunity that's in the greater Boston area to the people who live in our region. We have employment that will come out of this. We'll have businesses move here, but we'll also have all these construction jobs. We'll also have the foundation built, 56% of the rail miles, for the preferred alternative, which is the Stoughton Strait that connects Stoughton down to Fall River and New Bedford. Operationally, this year alone, we've had 200-year floods. So one of the things we can do is look at how we can improve our infrastructure so that you can't run trains on flooded tracks. So one of the things we're doing is absolutely looking at our resiliency and fixing things. Also, with the new station in Middleborough, we had to move a station up to Middleborough from Lakeville because if they kept the Lakeville station as part of this alternative, it would have required a reverse move. That's 15 minutes added travel time to back the train in. Engineer gets out, walks the length of the train, checks the brakes, gets back on, and leaves. That goes away by having the Middleborough station, which would also be good for Cape Shuttle service and is good for full build. So we did a lot of studying on this, and one of the things, or several of the things, we studied 7 alternatives, but several of the things that emerged as important. The one-seat ride was key.
I can tell you, as someone who advocates for the constituents in New Bedford, wearing my other hat, that was key, that one seat.
Yeah, you don't want to switch trains.
That was a deal breaker for some people as far as the perception of, do I want to take the T or the commuter rail? Do I want to not take it? That one-seated option was a big difference.
Oh, I mean, what if you miss your connection? You're
Correct.
Stranded somewhere, or you miss your meeting because you're stranded somewhere. And we all know the MBTA has its issues with equipment. Now, while the MBTA is working diligently to improve switches and tracks and everything else, the margin of error still exists until we get all that stuff fixed.
I got to tell you, shifting the responsibility of this project from the MBTA to MassDOT, that was a brilliant move.
Well, I think that we got back to planning because we got back to how are we going to make this work? Gosh, we waited so long for how are we going to make this work? When it's in design and construction, they're just going forward, the baby steps forward. This way, we were allowed to be creative, take our creative team, and put it to work to come up with this alternative that looks very promising at this point. So basically, as I mentioned, we are extending the existing Middleborough service, which is 24 trains a day, down to Fall River and New Bedford. We're going to be doing 26 trains a day, actually. We're adding one train, so a round trip. So 26 trips, as opposed to 24 that currently exist.
So 26 to each New Bedford and Fall River combined.
26 down to Taunton, and then they split.
Perfect. That's the
Okay?
Y split. We'll talk
That
about
is
that. The Southern
Southern
Triangle.
Triangle, that's right. So if somebody misses their train in New Bedford and they want to hustle up to Taunton, they can catch any train.
Exactly.
Okay?
Perfect.
And that's all we can fit. Remember, we have a very crowded corridor, and we also have limited slots at South Station. So you can't add a lot of train sets.
So folks at home, just try to envision this, and they'll be in the slide. And envision a Y split. Fall River's here, New Bedford's here, Taunton's up here, and we kind of converge.
Yes.
So, yeah, and that's exactly what it looks like. And then Middleborough, you hang a right to Middleborough.
Hang a right on the
and then you
Middleborough.
go straight up through Bridgewater, and there you go. You're on your
right.
way.
All the way to South Station. That's exactly right. So in the document that we just have completed, and we're in the public comment period for that new environmental review, all we're studying are new elements. So everything that was studied for Stoughton Electric that's in here, all the Southern Triangle, for example, we're not restudying. We have no wetland impacts. This is not a big deal. What we have is a couple of stations. We have to study those, and we have to study any impacts on that connection, the Middleborough secondary line. Other than that, we're all set to go, and we're not having to get huge variances, so the permitting has been pretty good, pretty smooth. So again, we'll have 13 round trips a day to the region. But more importantly, for commuters or people who are going up for college or other kinds of activities, the peak period, you'll have 3 from each city in the morning and 3 from each city in the evening.
Healthcare needs.
And that's what I'm saying. Yeah, you get up to one of those. It's medical mecca up there, and if you want top quality healthcare, I mean, the routine you're fine. But if you need something specialized and with the big experts in the world, you want to get to Boston, and you can take a train. You can also, by the way, sit on the train and do stuff. So people are saying right now, you're looking at about an hour and a half. Is that really a reasonable amount of time? Well, for somebody who does it every day from Freetown, so half an hour north of here, 2 hours is actually not bad at peak period. And I'm in the car with the vagaries of traffic, accidents, weather, always impacting that time. When you're on a train, you can work, you can sleep, you can call someone. You don't have to worry about that. It gets you from point A to point B without that anxiety.
You don't have to worry about texting and driving or anything like that.
You better not be if you're in the car.
You better not be. But you know what's funny is I've seen like some states like Oregon and these other states that are really heavily reliant on public transportation.
Correct.
A lot of these companies or businesses have actually been able to, and they've decided to dovetail the commute on that train or that commuter rail as part of the workday.
Part of the workday.
Part of the workday. Your workday starts on that train. You got the Wi-Fi. You've got your laptop or iPad fired up, and that's part of the day. Because they realize that you're spending an hour in the commute to and from, so let's make it part of your workday. It incentivizes people.
It's a form of telecommuting, but you're on your way to work. Yes, so it is. It's a great thing to do, and we're finding more and more larger cities, if they didn't have public transit, they wouldn't get anyone anywhere. So, I mean, there's no more real estate in the Commonwealth for highways and byways. We just don't have it. If it's a wetland or it's some other problem, some other hurdle to overcome. And the other thing is Bristol County doesn't have the best air quality. So the more cars we can get off the road, the better off everybody's going to be. So anyway, so we're actually whittling away with our operations model, and we have time to do this, to whittle those minutes down, maybe skip a few stations on some of the trips, but whittle down the time to make it even more attractive. Our ridership numbers, we had to redo the Stoughton numbers for this iteration because it really wasn't fair to take the 2011 numbers and say they were accurate today. So the 4750 we had back in 2011 for the Stoughton Electric alternative dropped down to closer to 4,000 because our growth projections back in 2011 were much more ambitious than the reality. So we lowered those, and we have 1,600 or 3,200 trips a day traveling back and forth. But I think the really great thing about this is that we do this, and by the time we get full build, all for the same money, $3.2 billion, there'll have been 7 million trips in the South Coast, back and forth between Boston, and those are essentially for no more money.
Well, you know, it's interesting, too, when you talk about the morning commute to and from the capital from this region, and I'm looking at some notes here, and I'm just bogged away, and we've talked about this before, but just so people will realize that this Phase 1 project will serve more than 20% of the Fall River and New Bedford residents who don't own cars, and 50% of Fall River's environmental justice population, and 86% of New Bedfordites who live within a half a mile of the two stations.
That's correct. So they're strategically placed, and they're meant to serve people.
It's true, because you've got, Whale's Tooth right in our downtown with
Yeah.
our working waterfront, and we have the Serta bus station just nearby, a hop
Exactly.
skip away, and you've got Kings Highway
Yep.
right up in the north end of New Bedford,
Yep.
right off of 140. Brilliantly placed.
They're well placed, and we're also proposing a pedestrian bridge for Whale's Tooth. I'm not
Correct.
sure exactly where that's going to connect, and we're looking at models right now, but that's been strongly pursued by the delegation, who doesn't, we don't want people crossing 18.
So we have a question from Pedro Chase, and we'll get
Sure.
right back to your presentation. He says, and you probably can't answer this, but it is an infrastructure question, and
Okay.
I can probably chime in as well, wearing my other hat. But it says, how about we spend this money on projects that will help more people, like the New Bedford-Fairhaven Bridge or the Kings Highway redesign?
Well, the Kings Highway redesign is happening. It's on the 2019 TIP. And actually, my team's been working very closely with the city on that, because we have a grade crossing there, and there are drainage
We absolutely
problems.
do, yep.
And so we've been working on the drainage. We've synced things up. We've had many, many meetings with DPI and with your engineering team here, CDM, really productive meetings. So we're advancing. Actually, Tarkin Hill Road, our grade crossing, will probably be one of our early actions.
Yep.
These are all good investments, and they're parallel investments. These serve many people. When you get that Kings Highway fixed up, those empty storefronts hopefully will be attractive to developers. Also, the station over there will probably lure people, because usually around a station you see development occurring fairly rapidly.
And I'm not, and none of us here are burying our heads in the sand. We know that.
Yeah.
We have a serious problem with the New Bedford-Fairhaven Bridge.
Yes.
It greatly inhibits vehicular and freighter traffic in the Northern Harbor.
Harbor, yeah.
And as a result, we can't develop the Northern Harbor the way we need to. Our harbor needs to be dredged. It hasn't been dredged in 50 years. We need federal money too, and I know that hopefully Congress can work on something bipartisan to get some more infrastructure funding to municipalities like a New Bedford and the Fall River. Still waiting on that infrastructure bill that the
Yes.
president talked about and how great it was going to be. And but let's see how that goes. It all comes down to dollars and cents.
It does, and I completely agree. That bridge is obsolete. You have to manufacture replacement parts for it. It's completely unreliable. And you're right, the access for the boats to get into the north part of the harbor is very limited.
That's why you don't see the huge Clementine freighters going in and out. You don't see the big boys and girls going in that way because they can't fit through.
No, and again, we have transportation dollars and priorities, and you can't get everything all at once. I think we have to keep plugging, and New Bedford, we need to keep plugging for that bridge.
And and the reality is that this rail project, is it the panacea to take care of all of the social and economic ailments of New Bedford and the South Coast? No, it absolutely isn't. No. But it's certainly a tool in the tool belt, and we have to keep that in mind.
We do have to keep that in mind, and we have to look at equity. Lowell has had the train for quite a while. They have a university, part of the UMass system, and Lowell is doing extremely well because they've been very strategic, as has New Bedford, and where development happens and how it happens. And it's been timed properly. They've taken full advantage of all of these things, and they keep building on it. And I think that's what we want to do here. It's one thing, but there are other elements that weigh in.
So now the questions are really starting to fire in, and that's good, though. We're getting a lot of engagement. So Doreen St. Germain says, I am concerned about how this station, and I'm assuming she's referring to the North End because I know her, she lives in the North End, how this station will affect the quiet neighborhoods nearby. Is there still an entrance planned on Church Street?
I don't know. I don't think so. We're still actually on that one working with the developer. We may have to do a little tweaking of the parking there. I know that there's a lot of effort underway right now trying to work with them and figure out how we're going to make all that work. In terms of the noise, yep, there's going to be noise. You have freight trains running there right now at about 5 miles an hour, very slowly. At least commuter rail trains will run a little faster, so the noise will be by, but they'll be more frequent. There is mitigation available for noise if it's horrible, whether it's a ballast mat or insulation. But we have a full policy and procedure in place to deal with people who find that the noise is just untenable. Mm-hmm. We'll
cross that bridge, no pun intended. We'll cross that when we come to it, right? But for the most part, I've been supportive of this for a long time because I feel that the good certainly outweighs the bad. And, you know, there really isn't any bad in this. It's just a matter of preference. And I can understand certain neighborhoods saying, well, we're used to a certain quality of life.
Exactly.
It's the same thing we're seeing now with wind turbines. There are constituents in the South End and by South Terminal in the South Central part of our city who are saying, well, we've got South Terminal now. We're going to be constructing wind turbines off of the South Coast now. What does that mean for the fishing community? What does that mean for the boaters? So these are obviously general questions and concerns that are valid.
They are valid. Everyone's concern is valid, and not everyone is going to be 100% satisfied with the answer. The question is, how do you make the best situation out of what you have?
Correct.
And that only happens with dialogue. It only happens by talking.
And we have a graphic up now of that southern triangle, Gene, that we can talk about where we're at and kind of how we shoot up to Boston.
All right. Is it, which one is it?
The southern triangle, yeah. and we have this right here, and you know what, I can...
if you can move it over.
Yeah, we move it a little bit. I don't know if we can get it in the shot, Josh. What I'll do is, how about I get up for a minute?
Okay.
I'll put this right here. Maybe you can get it in the shot. And let me move this out of the way. Okay, and I'll hold that. Is that okay, Josh?
Sure.
All right, there you go. All right. I feel like Vanna White over here.
Yeah, okay, Vanna. Right. So if you look on the left side, you see the aqua color. That's your Stoughton. So that's Stoughton connects up at Stoughton, goes down to Fall River in New Bedford at the triangle. That is full build Stoughton. Now if you go to the right, you see the Middleborough line. We're connecting from Fall River in New Bedford up the Southern Triangle, taking a right onto the Middleborough Secondary and connecting at a new station in Middleborough up to South Station. That's phase one.
Now, Gene, and I'm talking a little bit louder to make sure the mic picks me up. I'm a little away from my desk. Explain why we're moving the Middleborough station, please. Again,
we have to move the station there if we want to have a one-seat ride. Otherwise, we have to reverse the train down into the existing Middleborough Lakeville Terminal Station, which is in Lakeville. We're moving it 7/10 of a mile to the north so that it's on the alignment. We don't have to reverse the train into Lakeville. We go straight.
All right, so I'll put that back, and I'll go back to my seat. How did I do, Gene?
Beautifully, Vanna.
Beautifully. See? How about that? So things are looking pretty good right now, and I know that obviously we're in a public comment period.
Yes.
Can you talk about that? And I know you're looking for constituent and resident taxpayer involvement in that process.
I am looking for comments. So our draft document can be found online at Southcoast Rail at mass.gov. We have on there a simple form. Our document explains what I explained, all the new elements for phase one. Environmentally, cost, ridership, all the things we've talked about today. If people are supportive of this, a comment letter would be great. If people are concerned, a comment letter would be great. All comment letters will have a response as part of this process.
And that's the thing. I want everyone to realize that if you're generally maybe a little on the fence about this project, or even if you don't support this project, I've seen it the last 4 years in my dealings with the Rail to Boston Coalition. This is a very transparent process. Right. If you have an issue or a concern, they want to hear what you have to say. Absolutely.
We really do. And by doing the comment letter, we formalize that process. So we have a full record of what the concern was, or the fact that it's welcome. We have all of that on record, and we have a response that we generate to
So
that.
Nancy Crane asks, and I can answer this, when is this taking place, or is it just more talk?
Oh!
Again, this goes back 30 years, Nancy,
Yeah.
but if you tuned in at the beginning, you would have heard that 2022, late 2022 is what we're saying. So I think it's really going to happen this time. I'm not just saying that.
Assuming we get through this comment period and we get our certificate in the spring, then we can start building.
So, I mean, this is just, you know, and I'm looking through all of the bullet points about this, and, you know, obviously, you know, this goes back to Governor Weld, but I really want to commend, I'd be remiss if I didn't commend the Patrick Murray administration for starting this. And I remember they had the whole press conference at Wales 2 a few years ago about it coming. And then the Baker-Polito administration picking that momentum up and really trying to punch it through. And of course, your supervisor, Secretary Marlene Pollock, she's been a rock star since day one, been very engaged.
Yes, she has. And I'm glad you know you've complimented all the right people, because the last two administrations have said, enough is enough, let's get this going.
Yeah, exactly. So let's talk a little bit about Middleborough. What's going on there? Because the select board there recently took up a ceremonial vote, if you will, and as someone who's in the business, I know a dog and pony show when I see it, and this is what it is. So the selectmen vote against the Southcoast Rail plan. The vote means nothing. All it means is that they're against it. I mean, obviously they have opinions, and they're entitled to them, and I respect their opinions. We all do. But what's the purpose of them taking this vote? Do you know what's going on here?
Well, I think I can't really speculate on all the details, but what I can say is they have concerns, legitimate concerns, primarily related to traffic. So they're thinking that moving the station to where we want to move it in Middleborough is going to exacerbate an already difficult traffic situation. We've done some traffic counts, and they do have some problems there, but we're also undertaking a major traffic study, and what we propose to do is do our level best to create multiple entrances to the station, do some signaling, timing, and things like that so that we actually can relieve it. Their issue is they have backup from the rotary. They've had a problem with their rotary for a long time.
Oh, yeah.
And we get that. And, the feeling is that we're just adding insult to injury by introducing more traffic into Middleborough.
I used to be a student at Bridgewater State. I know
It's
that rotary
bad.
all too well.
It is bad.
It is bad.
Some upgrades are going to be done this spring, so a little help for them. But I don't think they're terribly optimistic that that's really going to help fix much.
Christian Farland asks, is this just a line on a plan? If not, how far along are the design plans? 50, 75, etc.
Okay, well, that would be Mass DOT specs. We're using MBTA specs. So we are at past 30% to get our permitting, and some things, the early action bridges we want to do on the New Bedford Main Line are at 100% design. So we've advanced everything. Once you get to 30, you can go for your permits, and then you're basically fine-tuning.
Gene, if you want to indulge me for a minute, I got to take care of some business here.
Certainly.
We have sponsors. Have a sip of water, relax
you.
for a minute, and relax the vocal cords. So we have a couple of featured jobs that we want to feature on this week's program. So let's start off with the Girl Scouts of Eastern Massachusetts. They are hiring, folks. So the Girl Scouts of Eastern Massachusetts are hiring, and I'm reading directly from their mission statement that we are looking for mission-focused community program facilitators to join our GSEMA team. In this role, you will coordinate programs for girls in specific geographic areas within the council with a focus on health and wellness, financial literacy, STEM, and outdoor education. Girls also participate in product programs like the Beloved Cookie Program and go on field trips. You will have a unique opportunity to support girls in developing leadership skills that will take them wherever they go. If you are interested in applying, well, first, before we go there, here are the hours. The work schedule varies, so you have to be available between 2 to 6 p.m. Monday through Friday. And if you are interested in applying, please submit your resume and a cover letter with salary expectations by clicking the link, and we can put it below in the comments after the show, but and I'll put it right here below. So make sure you click on that link, and it's tinyurl.com/GSEMASE. So that's the link to be able to apply if you're interested. And of course, they are an equal opportunity employer. Girl Scouts of Eastern Massachusetts. Next up, we have Enos Home Medical. So Enos Home Oxygen Therapy is seeking a full-time customer service representative, and after a 90-day probationary period, you will receive the following benefits: medical and dental insurance, vision insurance, a 401k plan, and a paid time off. Responsibilities include answering phone calls, maintaining open communication with patients and clients, responding to patient and client questions, service walk-ins, and assisting their drivers with preparing routes and log route changes, and really facilitate all sorts of driver communications. And also, you're going to set up new patient files, and you're expected to help bring in new sales and leads for the company. If you are interested, please send over your resume to employment@EnosHomeMedical.com. So employment at ENOS, Enos Home Medical, all one word, And don't forget, folks, if you're an employer out there and you're looking to have the needs of your workforce met, there's no better place than advertising right here on this program and with New Bedford Guide, whether through our website, through this show, through our Facebook page. We actually get fired by employers because we do such a good job. We put up a post about a company that's hiring. Gene, this is the truth, and hand to God. Companies say, my God, I just received 80 resumes, 90 resumes. Please cut it off. I can't afford it anymore. So essentially, we get fired because we do such a good job here.
Good.
That's a good thing. So there, housekeeping out of the way.
Well, those are two great jobs,
Two great jobs. And I know the Girl Scouts one would have been really, would have caught your eye, because I know you're very involved.
Very involved with women's issues and girls.
And that's great. And as a father of a little girl, it's great to see that. Yeah, and that's awesome. So I'm all in on that. So that's great.
Me too.
So let's continue. And again, folks, your questions and comments I welcome. Good, bad, ugly. Well, it can be ugly, but I'm not going to read it probably. But I don't encourage ugly. But you know, if you're a little skeptical, you have a question or concern, Gene certainly wants to hear it. I want to hear it. And if you just want to give an attaboy, you know, thanks for doing this. So, you know, many people, again, they express the skepticism about the remainder of Southcoast Rail, the full build, whether or not it'll ever come to pass. But, you know, years of disappointment are difficult to put aside, I think.
Absolutely.
But how do we change that mindset of we're winners here and we deserve good things and we're going to get good things? And I think, I feel like, you know, that old song, once bitten, twice shy, right? Because we were going to get an aquarium, it never happened. We were going to get a casino, it never happened. Two different occasions we were going to get a casino, it never happened.
True.
Rail, you've been holding that carrot and dragging us along. But, you know, how do we change that mindset of, you know, we're taxpayers and voters just like they are in Boston, right, and we deserve good things, and we're going to get good things.
Well, I think you just did it. You just said it. We do deserve good things. We are going to get good things. We need to be advocates for our own self-interest, too.
Well, that's the thing, and I would think that, and correct me if I'm wrong, but the governor and our secretary, if they wanted this project to die, and this is my opinion, if they wanted this to die, wouldn't they just say, let's continue to study Stoughton, throw a few more $1 million every year, and have the dog and pony of, oh, we're studying it, we're going after it, not knowing it really isn't going to go anywhere for a while. But the fact that we have a real plan for Middleborough to get us phase 1 for now shows me that there's a real commitment. Because if there was fence straddling, in my opinion, we would just keep studying Stoughton, we'd keep kicking that can down the road for the next bajillion years.
I totally agree with you. This administration has committed. This secretary has been out there meeting with people, meeting with town officials, meeting with city officials, talking about why this commitment is so important to the region. There's an economic development catalyst. There's no question, and she gets that. And the governor gets that. They haven't kicked the can. We've spent enough money studying. Now we need to do something. And that's what we're doing here. That's why we need the public support with the comment letters, and even just the questions. But comment letters would be very, very important to have by this Friday.
And Taunton gets the East Station.
Taunton gets one station. It's an excellent station. They don't have the downtown station, and that is unfortunate. We are going to work with Taunton just as we're working with Middleborough. We're going to continue to work with these towns. We've got some technical assistance money we're going to be putting out there to do some planning. Taunton could do some TOD planning around that station, which is at the 140-24 interchange, right? The downtown, we could potentially fix something up so that we could get people from the downtown to the station without having it be a nightmare on the intersection there, because that gets pretty crowded there as well. And same thing with Middleborough. Middleborough has traffic. We're doing a traffic study.
Now, is East Taunton, is that going to be near the Galleria?
Yes.
Okay, how far away? Because obviously there's a BCC implication there, because the BCC campus is in the Galleria, so does that play into this?
Perfect.
Okay, good.
That's perfect. I actually hadn't put that together, and I had a public meeting at the BCC
See, how about that?
It's perfect for them, and of course there's feeder bus service. GATRA does a great job.
It does, yes.
And they'll be running their service. They'll connect the kids, the students, to the train and vice versa. It is right there. It's right where they used to have the little golf range.
Oh, yes.
So it's right off the highway.
The purple dinosaur.
That's what I call it, but I didn't know people in Bedford
the purple
knew about
dinosaur.
that. I said I want that on my front lawn.
Yeah. Is Smoky Bones and all that still up that way?
Yeah, they are. They're still there.
They still exist, huh?
Yeah,
Smoky Bones?
and an Uno across the street.
I know the Uno, yeah,
Yeah.
yeah. And there's a Wendy's down the way.
There's a Wendy's.
If you keep going to Taunton Green, you can't miss it, right?
That's right.
Keep going straight.
That's right.
See, I know. I'm a New Bedford guy, but I know my Taunton, okay?
You know your Taunton.
I've driven around.
Yeah, but you have, that part is the sort of mixed use area. The downtown area off the green is closer to where the other station was going to be. So we feel that. That's palpable. They don't have that station. We want to work with them to, let me put this back, too. Back step a little bit.
Yeah.
You cannot phase a project unless you commit to the rest of it.
Yep.
We're right now studying Cotley up to Rainham. With the design piece. So for us, continuing that study is essentially important in what we have to do.
Absolutely. Now, we talked about the New Bedford stations. Now, the New Bedford stations, or even the Taunton Fall River, but let's say New Bedford because we're in New Bedford physically,
right.
and I'm a New Bedford guy, as
Yes.
everyone knows. The other state, we'll talk about all the stations. How
Okay.
big are they going to be? What size are we looking at? Are we talking about a big area where there's going to be a concession area, or where you can get your newspaper or coffee, or just a waiting area where you just pay for your fare and wait for a train? How does that all play out?
The stations aren't that fancy.
Okay, so it's not like
like South
it's
Station.
not like Braintree or
No.
Quincy Adams. Okay, I just want to be clear for everyone so they understand
Good
what we're
idea,
getting.
yes. Now, that can change. If you have your transit-oriented development zoning around your stations, you would be a draw for a Starbucks or a Dunkin' Donuts or even a dry clean or something like that. But for now, what the MBTA delivers, is an 800-foot-long accessible platform and parking. There's also some canopy and signage. There's what we call a transition plaza where the buses and the kiss and rides can go.
Yes, yeah.
Right? That's it.
So when you buy your tickets to get on the train, would it be a kiosk, I would assume?
It probably on the phone.
Wow, okay.
Most people buy their tickets on their phones now. Yeah.
I tell you, I was talking to a friend of mine the other day we went to a Celtics game about a month ago, and I said, I just asked him flat out, I said, if we had rail, would you take it? He said, oh, heck yes, I'd take the rail. I said, I would too. He said, driving to Boston and having to deal with all that madness and the Braintree tea.
And have a good time and not worry about things.
Yeah,
That's
yeah.
right. Yeah. It's much easier when you put yourself at somebody else's disposal. You drive, I'll sit.
Yeah. No, and it's beautiful. It can bring you right through. So Fall River and Taunton, the same deal on the track?
Initially, we were looking to make sure that TOD, transit-oriented development zoning, was in place around most of the stations. We don't have that everywhere. But that then invites private sector development around the station.
So we have to have that for New Bedford. We have to work on that.
I think we have some of that. I'm pretty sure.
I know the mayor's been pushing for that, so it's very important.
We should have it. And we should. We should try to do more around the stations. If you go down to a place like Washington, D.C., you'll see that every station is like that. They're all, in fact, all apartments around them, and then all your service industries, eateries, coffee places, of course. That's how you develop some great little TOD.
We have another question from Dom Lee. How much will the yearly budget for this be, and will ridership cover the entire cost, or will the taxpayer subsidize it?
No commuter rail service is fully covered by people paying fares.
Right.
They are subsidized. We're actually right now looking at what the operation and maintenance costs will be for Southcoast Rail, because the MBTA will have to take this over and Keolis will have to take this over and run it, and they're going to want to know what that's going to be. I don't have that. So our fare box recovery, which is what we refer to as what the fares do cover, we don't even have that estimated at this point. It will be an analysis that will be conducted at the time, and fares may change between now and when we get underway. But all of that, those are very good and very relevant questions. I don't have all the answers to at this time.
And when we talk about employment and economic opportunity and disadvantage, think about this, folks. If you're underemployed, about to graduate high school or college, you can now conceivably apply for jobs in Boston or in that Boston area along the route and not have to just worry about, well, I don't have reliable transportation. I can only work within a mile of my home. I can now get to Boston. And Boston can now benefit off of our great workforce.
Terrific news about that. So the housing stock down here, for example, is phenomenal. I don't think you can buy one slot in a garage in Boston for what you buy a beautiful home down here for.
It's true.
So we have all of these resources down here that people inside 128 Beltway have no idea exist. So you're right, it's a reciprocal connection. It goes both ways. We get our kids better opportunities, And we also draw opportunity down here.
Correct.
Right?
You know, whether it's two-way commerce, day trips,
Exactly.
staycationers, tourism dollars. I mean, look at all the events we have at our waterfront every year.
Every
the
year.
Chowder Fest that we
The
put on with the
half
chamber.
marathon is
The
about-
half marathon. Taste of the South Coast that my friends at the Friendly Sons of St. Patrick put on every
That's right.
year. The Working Waterfront Festival.
It's amazing.
AHA Nights. I mean, we can just go on and on.
There's so much. And the ferry service in the summer, the train will come right down and you can go hop on the ferry.
It's amazing. You can go
Isn't it?
from Nantucket to
Yeah,
Boston
yeah.
just by, you know, the Sea Streak, and you can hop right in.
That's right. It's a wonderful thing.
It's not bad. How about other forms of transportation while I got you? And we're talking about Mass DOT. I had supported and backed the Holly McNamara Hyperloop initiative.
Yes.
That I was all in on that, and I loved the idea. And I know her and her team, they made it to the final 40, whatever it
did.
was,
They
and
did.
they were looking for the Somerset, Providence, Boston proposal.
Yep.
And that just really was cool to me. Do you see things like that really taking over rail or traditional train service in the future? I mean,
I see it pretty distant, and of course, it's pure speculation right now.
Yeah.
It's a technology that sounds great, but you know, is unproven so far.
I just feel like I'm at the bank teller and they just
You
shoot me
are.
up and
It's a wonderful thing, and there's another technology that's not unlike Holly McNamara's and the hyperlink thing. There's these different, like a pod system that could connect you. So I think that we're looking at people moving in new and different ways, and it's an exciting time to be in it.
you know, at some point in the history of man, we're going to have a beam me up Scotty situation.
Yeah.
I'm probably not going to be here,
No, we
but
won't.
but that's going to happen. I'm pretty sure we'll figure that out.
I think we'll have to. I mean, you know, autonomous vehicles is the tip of the iceberg. This moving people via hyperlink is very exciting stuff. I agree with you 100%. And Holly's done a great job with that.
She is, and I know she's continuing to go to the public comment
She
periods, and she's
has.
been engaged.
Yeah.
And she just wants to make sure that Hyperloop has a seat at the table, and she's passionate in what she believes in, and you can't discredit that, and that's great.
You cannot, and I feel the same way. I'm passionate about connecting Fall River, New Bedford to Boston via train, and the way to see these things come to fruition, which Holly is doing, is kind of being there all the time, being in front of it, saying, we need this, we need this, we need this. Please look at it. Please don't discount it.
I tell you, how many years have you been the program manager of this initiative?
7 years, but even before that, as everyone knows, I was very, very engaged.
You must feel like the mother to this project.
I do. I feel like I'm giving
this
birth
is your
to this
baby.
thing. Yeah, it is
Yeah,
my
this is your baby, right?
It is. It means a lot to me. It means a lot to connect our cities to Boston.
You know, it is, and you know, and I commend you for never losing hope, because there's been plenty of ebbs and flows.
Yeah, there have.
So Dom Lee asked a follow-up: will this increase property values in the area? The answer to that is yes. If so, what kind of program will the city be able to put in place to help the elderly who will not be able to afford the higher property taxes? If they bought a $200,000 home today and say it goes up 100 or 200%, I don't think I'd be able to afford it.
Well, I mean, I can't answer that. That's up to the
Right.
city council.
Thanks, Gene. Thanks, Doc. Now you're
It's
Dr.
true.
Fox.
It's true.
Thanks, Dr.
It's true.
Fox.
It's true that property values typically increase, and usually that's a good thing, because what does that mean? Your tax base increases, which means you get more services. You have more money for your schools, more money for your police, your fire,
More
your
Chapter
roads.
90, more Chapter 70 for schools.
That's right.
Which Chapter 90 we need very badly. And there's a lot of things, too, at the state level we need to work on, Mr. Lee, like not to get too wonky or to get off of this, but the charter school reimbursement formula is completely
broken.
busted, okay? Just for instance, us, New Bedford taxpayers, you, me, all of us, we paid $14,800,000 last year because the money follows the child, rightfully so, okay? The state only reimbursed us $2,300,000 of that. So over $10 million plus dollars, we took it on the chin, and we never got reimbursed. That's money we're never going to get back. That's a lot of money.
The programming for the schools is flawed. It really is. It's great that money follows the child.
And you know, you were youth council director. You know?
Yes.
Yeah.
I mean, and I want to see, you get one shot at educating a kid, right? You want to do it right the first time.
Joey Wolf, when will this be ready? Again, Joey, if you
November.
just tuned in, it'll be 2022 toward the end of the
Yep.
year. Hopefully we're not cutting a ribbon in snow.
Ew, I don't care. I'll cut it in anything.
I'll cut it in anything, too. I don't care at this point.
Me too.
I'm ready to go.
Oh, me too.
Well, we're not far away. So again, before we put a bow on this program, we're already, wow, time flew by. We're already at 5:45. Again, how people can reach you at your office and how they can get involved in the public comment period, and how they can be part of the process.
So I'm happy to give out my email address, which is Jean.Fox, F-O-X, at state.ma.us. And my phone number in the office is, I hope I can remember this, 857-368-8853.
And if not, you can always Google Jean Fox.
You can find me at Southcoast Rail. That's right.
You can always,
Yes, you can find me. And you can Google Southcoast Rail, and you'll get to our webpage, and you'll find the document, which is huge. You probably won't want to read through all of that. But there's an executive summary that's pretty succinct. It summarizes everything in the document. And then the next steps, again, are to submit your comments. It can be one sentence. I think this is great. It's about time. Or I'm a little concerned about noise. I mean, these are the things we want to hear. But 1-2 sentences via email to me will suffice.
Any other final thoughts that you want to put forward before we sign off on this project?
Yeah, I want to thank people like you, Ian, for your support, which has been unwavering.
Thank you.
For people who have gone through this for so many years and understand the skepticism, I totally get it. But right now we need to think positive. We need to unify as a united front behind the administration that's pushing to find every penny we need to get this thing built.
Last thing we want to do is give the governor an excuse to say, you know what?
Never mind.
You folks down in the South Coast region, you don't know what the heck you want. I'm pulling the plug.
That is the last thing we want. I don't expect that to happen, but we do need to show that we're really excited about moving this forward. This is a big thing for our region.
Jean Fox, an absolute pleasure to have you.
Thank you.
And come back again soon as we get further along in the process.
I'd love to. Absolutely love to.
So again, folks, we're going to sign off for this week's edition of the South Coast Job Central. It's been my pleasure to have Jean Fox. For our producer, Josh Souza. For my guest, Jean Fox, my name is Ian Abreu. And we'll see you here all once again next week with another exciting guest, God willing. Thank you and Godspeed, New Bedford and the South Coast. Have a great rest of your week.